There are people who have known you for years, your family, old friends, perhaps a partner who has shared your bed for a decade. They know your habits, your history, the way you take your coffee, the stories you tell. By every ordinary measure, they know you. And yet, in a quiet moment, maybe late at night, maybe in the middle of a conversation that should feel close, you're struck by a strange and lonely realization. They don't actually know you, not the real you, not the one underneath. They know a version, a surface, a carefully maintained presentation that you've shown them for so long that both of you have forgotten it's a presentation. And the person living behind it, the one you actually are, in the privacy of your own experience, has never quite been met by anyone. This is one of the loneliest feelings a human being can have, and it's made lonelier by the fact that you can't easily explain it. How do you tell someone who loves you that they don't really know you? It sounds like an accusation or like madness. They would object. They would list everything they know about you, and they wouldn't be wrong exactly. They know a great deal, but they don't know the thing you mean, the felt sense of being seen all the way down, of having your actual inner self recognized by another person. That, you suspect, no one has ever done. And you've started to wonder if anyone ever could. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the structure of the human psyche, and his work offers the most precise explanation available for why this feeling is so common and so real. It's not that the people around you are careless, or that you've chosen the wrong ones. It's that the very architecture of the self, the way personality is built, the way we present ourselves to the world, the parts of us that remain hidden even from ourselves, makes being fully known one of the rarest and most difficult achievements of a human life. And understanding why is the first step toward the thing you're actually longing for. To understand why no one knows you, you have to start with the thing they know instead. Jung called it the persona, and it is one of his most important concepts. The word comes from the Latin term for the mask worn by actors in the ancient theatre, and Jung chose it deliberately because the persona is precisely that, a mask, not a sinister one, a necessary one. The persona is the face you present to the world, the version of yourself constructed to meet the expectations of society, to function in your roles, to be acceptable and legible to others. Everyone has a persona, and having one is not a flaw. It is a psychological necessity. The persona is what allows you to operate in the world, to be the professional at work, the reliable friend, the responsible parent, the pleasant acquaintance. It smooths social life. It protects your private self from constant exposure. Without a persona, every interaction would require the full, raw presentation of everything you are, which would be both exhausting and unwise. The persona is a kind of diplomatic interface between your inner world and the outer one, and a person without a functioning persona struggles to move through society at all. But here is where the loneliness begins. The persona is not you. It is a construction, an adaptation, a role, and the more skillfully you perform it, the more seamless and convincing it becomes, the more it stands between the real you and the people around you. They interact with the persona. They respond to the persona. They come to know the persona so well that they mistake it for the whole of you. And you let them, because that is what the persona is for. But the result is that the people in your life form a relationship with your mask, and the self behind the mask goes unmet, sometimes for an entire lifetime. Jung warned of a particular danger here, the danger of identifying so completely with your persona that you lose contact with who you actually are beneath it. When a person becomes their mask, when the performance becomes so total that they can no longer locate the real self underneath, they achieve a kind of social success at the cost of a profound inner emptiness. They are known by everyone and met by no one, including themselves. The persona has swallowed the person. And this, Jung understood, is one of the characteristic afflictions of modern life. The person who has a highly developed social self and a starved, neglected, unknown inner one. So the first reason no one really knows you is simply this. What they have been given to know is the persona. And the persona, however authentic seeming, is a face constructed for the world, not the self that lives behind it. The closer you look, the stranger this becomes, because the persona is often most convincing to the people who have known you longest. They have watched you perform it for so many years that they have never had reason to doubt it is you. Familiarity, which we assume brings knowing, can in fact entrench the illusion. The people most certain they know you may simply be the ones who have known your mask the longest. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. If the persona is the part of you that others are allowed to see, the shadow is the part you make sure they don't. Jung used the term shadow to describe everything about yourself that you have rejected, disowned, and pushed out of your conscious self-image. The traits, desires, impulses, and feelings that you have deemed unacceptable and hidden away, not only from others, but often from yourself. The shadow forms early, as you learn what is acceptable and what is not in the environment you grew up in. The parts of you that were met with disapproval, shame, or rejection. The anger, the neediness, the selfishness, the strange desires, the socially inconvenient truths of your nature get pushed down and hidden, banished from the self you present, and eventually from the self you consciously acknowledge. What remains in the light is the acceptable version. What goes into the shadow is everything that didn't fit. This creates a second, deeper barrier to being known, because even in your most intimate relationships, even with the people you are closest to, there are whole regions of yourself that you actively keep hidden. The thoughts you would never admit, the feelings you're ashamed of, the parts of your nature that contradict the image you've worked to maintain. You keep these in shadow precisely because you fear that to reveal them would be to risk rejection, that if people saw these parts, they would withdraw. And so you show them the acceptable self and hide the rest, which means the version of you that others know is not only a persona, but a curated one, edited to exclude everything you've judged unlovable. The tragedy here is subtle but profound. The very parts of yourself that you hide are often the parts that most need to be known. The wounds, the fears, the disowned truths that carry the deepest weight of your inner life. By keeping them in shadow, you ensure that the people closest to you are relating to an incomplete version of you, a self with its most vulnerable and most real regions deliberately concealed. You are known, but only within the boundaries you have drawn, and the most important territory lies outside them, in the dark, unseen. And there is a further difficulty that Jung understood with particular depth. The shadow is not only hidden from others, it is largely hidden from you. Much of what you have disowned has been pushed so far out of awareness that you no longer have clear access to it yourself, which means that when you try to reveal yourself to another person, when you genuinely want to be known, you cannot fully do it, because significant parts of who you are remain unknown to you. You cannot show someone what you cannot see. This is one of the deepest reasons no one really knows you. In an important sense, you don't fully know yourself. Here Jung's analysis reaches its most profound and most difficult point. because beyond the persona that others see, and beyond the shadow that you hide, there is something even more fundamental that makes complete knowing impossible. The psyche, in Jung's understanding, is vastly larger than the conscious mind. Beneath the small, illuminated circle of your awareness lies an immense unconscious, personal and collective, containing depths that you will never fully bring into the light, not in an entire lifetime of trying. This means that you are, in the most literal sense, a mystery to yourself. The conscious self, the I that you take yourself to be, is only a small part of the total psyche. Beneath it moves a vast, dark ocean of the unconscious, containing forgotten experiences, repressed material, inherited patterns, and depths that consciousness can glimpse, but never fully grasp. Jung devoted his life to the exploration of this territory, and one of his central conclusions was that the self, in its totality, exceeds what the conscious mind can ever comprehend. You cannot fully know yourself, because a large part of what you are lies permanently beyond the reach of your own awareness. And if you cannot fully know yourself, then no one else can fully know you either. This is not a failure of intimacy or effort. It is a structural feature of what a human being is. Even in the deepest relationship imaginable, between two people committed to knowing each other completely, there would remain in each of them an unknowable core, the unconscious depths that neither they nor their partner could ever fully bring into the light. To be human is to contain more than can be seen, more than can be said, more than can be known, even by oneself. There is a loneliness in this that Jung did not shy away from. He understood that each person is, in some final sense, alone with the totality of their own being, that no other person can ever fully cross the distance into the private, unknowable depths of another's psyche. But he also saw something else in it, something that transforms the loneliness rather than merely confirming it. Because if the unknowable core is a permanent feature of being human, then the feeling that no one really knows you is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is not evidence that you are uniquely isolated, uniquely unlovable, uniquely alone. It is the universal condition of every human being who has ever lived. Everyone carries an unknowable depth. Everyone feels at times unmet in their fullness. The loneliness you thought was yours alone is, in fact, the most common thing in the world, the shared inheritance of every person who has ever longed to be truly seen. Jung's analysis might seem to lead to despair. If the persona hides you, the shadow conceals you, and an unknowable core makes complete knowing impossible, then what hope is there of ever being seen? But Jung's work points toward something more hopeful than that. Not the fantasy of being completely known, which is impossible, but the real and achievable goal of being far more truly known than most people ever allow themselves to be. Here is how his framework points the way. The first movement is to know yourself, to undertake the work Jung considered the central task of a human life. You cannot be known by others in ways you are not known to yourself. So the foundational work is the inner work, the gradual process of bringing the unconscious into consciousness, of exploring your own depths, of becoming acquainted with the parts of yourself that have lived in shadow. Jung called the larger version of this process individuation, the lifelong work of becoming whole by integrating the hidden and disowned parts of the self. Every piece of yourself that you reclaim from the shadow, every truth about your own nature that you bring into the light, becomes something you can then, if you choose, reveal to another. Self-knowledge is the raw material of being known. Without it, You have nothing to show but the persona. The second movement is to loosen your identification with the persona. If the persona stands between you and being known, then being known requires the willingness, in the right contexts and with the right people, to set the mask down. This does not mean abandoning the persona. You need it to function in the world. It means recognizing that it is a tool, not your identity, and developing the capacity to step out from behind it when genuine connection is possible. The person who cannot ever lower the mask, who performs the persona even in their most intimate relationships, guarantees their own loneliness. The willingness to be seen without the mask, even occasionally, even with just one person, is the doorway through which being known becomes possible. The third movement is to risk revealing the shadow, carefully, and with people who have earned it. Being known requires letting another person see the parts of you that you normally hide, the disowned and vulnerable regions that carry your deepest truths. This is frightening, because the whole reason those parts went into shadow was the fear of rejection. But it is the only path to genuine intimacy. When you show another person something real that you normally conceal, a fear, a shame, a truth about your nature, and they meet it with acceptance rather than withdrawal, something profound happens. You are known, in that moment, in a way the persona could never allow. Jung understood that real intimacy is built precisely through this mutual revealing of what is normally hidden. It cannot happen from behind the mask. It happens only when the mask comes down and the real self, shadow and all, is allowed to be seen. The fourth movement is to make peace with the unknowable core, to release the fantasy of being completely known and embrace the deeper form of connection that remains available. You will never be fully known by anyone, ever. This is not a tragedy to be solved, but a truth to be accepted. And paradoxically, accepting it opens the door to a richer kind of intimacy. When you stop demanding that another person know you completely, an impossible demand that no one could ever satisfy, you become able to appreciate the real and profound knowing that is possible. The connection of two people who see each other truly, if not totally, who meet each other in the light of what can be shared while honoring the mystery of what cannot. This is what genuine intimacy actually is, not the impossible fusion of two people who know each other completely, but the meeting of two irreducible mysteries who have chosen to reveal themselves to each other as fully as they can, and to hold with reverence the unknowable depths that remain. The feeling that no one really knows you is not a sign that you are broken or unlovable or alone in some way that others are not. It is the honest recognition of a truth about the human condition that most people spend their lives avoiding. You are known, by the people around you, as a persona, a face constructed for the world. You keep much of yourself in shadow, hidden even from those you love, and hidden partly from yourself. And beneath it all lies an unknowable core, a depth that no one, not even you, can ever fully reach. This is why no one really knows you. And it is why, in the deepest sense, no one really knows anyone. But Jung's work does not leave you there, in the cold. Because the same analysis that reveals why complete knowing is impossible also reveals how much more knowing is possible than most people ever achieve. The loneliness you feel is not a life sentence. It is a starting point, an invitation to the work that could actually address it, to know yourself more deeply so that there is more of you available to be known, to loosen your grip on the persona so that the real self can occasionally step into view, to risk showing the shadow so that another person can meet what you normally hide, and to make peace with the mystery that remains, so that you can receive the real intimacy available to you instead of grieving the total intimacy that was never possible for anyone. Most people never do this work. They spend their lives behind the persona, keeping the shadow hidden, feeling the quiet ache of being unknown, and never understanding where it comes from or what to do about it. You now understand both. The ache is not a flaw in your life. It is the sensation of a self that has more to reveal than it has yet revealed, longing for a connection it has not yet risked. And the path toward that connection is open whenever you are ready to walk it. You will not be completely known. No one is. But you can be truly known, far more truly than you are now, by the people willing to meet you in the light, if you are willing to bring yourself into it. The mask can come down. The shadow can be shared. The mystery can be honored rather than mourned. And on the other side of that courage is the thing you have been longing for all along, not to be known completely, which is impossible, but to be known truly, which is the most that any human being can offer another, and the most that any of us has ever needed.